lessons. Today I want to talk about one of the most important lessons I've learned in the car business. And it came from me being an assistant manager slash closer is what they called it. And I did that position for about 5 years. So today we're going to talk about that and how you need to utilize this. Welcome to Car Talk, where I give you my 20 years of experience on my 20-minute drive to work. All right, this might sound like common sense. Of course, every salesperson is going to do this. It's their job. Why wouldn't they do this? But it just doesn't happen as often as you would think. And I think a natural salesperson, it just comes to them natural. But the salespeople that are new, haven't done this before, they fear this part. They really fear this part of the job. But it's the most crucial part of the job. And that is simply asking the customer to buy the vehicle. Just asking them to buy the vehicle. It gets danced around towards the end of the sale. It just gets danced around. And I'm sure there's fear in new salespeople's mind. They feel awkward asking them to buy the vehicle. What if the customer tells them no, they don't want to buy the vehicle? How do I ask them to buy the vehicle? What if they're not ready to buy the vehicle? And all this goes on in new people's head, and then they start overthinking it a little bit too much. But when I spent 5 years as an assistant manager closer, where my only job was to ask people to buy. That was my only job. I was the guy that presented the numbers and closed the deal for newer salespeople. And I love the job so much because it taught me so much. The salespeople would get me to come out if the salesperson or if the customer didn't want to take a test drive. I was the guy that would come out and I would help them get on the test drive. And then when they got back from the test drive, if the customer didn't want to look at the numbers, I was the guy that would go out and help them get to that next step and show them the numbers. I would be the guy that presented the numbers and closed the deal. And the thing that I learned was on each one of those steps, it just didn't happen. The salesperson either didn't ask or didn't tell the customer what was next. And so I would come out and I would basically run through the steps of the sale within 5 minutes. Now, because I had to go really quick because the customer's already been there for such X amount of time. So I'd come out, introduce myself, do the meet and greet, build common ground, build rapport real quick, and then I would just ask them or tell them, hey, it sounds like this might be the perfect vehicle for you. We wouldn't know that, or you wouldn't know that until you actually test drove the vehicle. So go ahead and take a test drive and then pull up front when you get back and just let us know how it is. If you decide you don't like it, cross it off the list, move on. And I had some good lines, and I had some things that I would say that always seemed to work. But really, the biggest thing I did was literally just ask them, or then told them the next step. And this would blow salespeople away. They would be like, I don't understand. I've been out here for 45 minutes with the customer. You come out, and within 5 minutes, now they're on the test drive. Hey, within 5 minutes of you meeting them, now they're doing the write-up and they're looking at the numbers. And they're like, I just don't understand, man. You're so good. This is awesome. And it took me a while to realize what I was doing that they weren't. And that's what it was. It was simply, I would just ask them to buy. I would just ask them to go on the test drive. I would present them the numbers. I would present them the option of doing so. And they wouldn't. They were so afraid of what the customer would say if they said no. They were so afraid of it. And maybe I just naturally overcame it because it was my job and I had to do it every single day, 100 times a month. Or I just didn't care. I just didn't care if the customer told me no. You learn things in sales that kind of stick with you for a long time. And one thing that stuck with me in this process is the sale doesn't start until somebody says no. So I was taught when somebody says no, smile big. Because now it's game time. And so I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I mean, I guess it is true, because if they're saying no, then you have to figure out why they're saying no. Then you have to overcome that. But I would just smile. I was okay with it. And to be honest, I treated it like a game. I loved it. I loved to figure out. Like when somebody told me no, I loved to figure out why. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know why they said no. I wanted to know why they picked this vehicle out. Like I actually cared. Like why this vehicle? Why that vehicle? Why this feature? Why that color? Why do you have the current vehicle that you have? And maybe me really caring and really mastering the steps of the sale led me to the point where I was confident enough to know, like, this is the perfect vehicle for you, so why wouldn't you buy it? Yesterday's video, I talked about the transition from the test drive to the write-up. And I was with a salesperson and we were talking about this. And I told them a line to get a customer to essentially say yes. And that was, let's say they came in, they're looking at a blue color and they love the blue color. And you ask the customer, sure is a nice color, isn't it? And the salesperson, he's laughing at me. He's literally laughing at me. And he's like, bro, that ain't even a word. And I'm like, what's not a word? He goes, isn't it? That's not a word. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a word. And so we actually pulled out ChatGTP. And I asked ChatGTP, I said, hey, if I ask a customer after a test drive a question that I know they're going to like, that they're going to say yes to, but I ask them in this manner, sure is a nice color, isn't it? What am I doing? And it's basically what they're saying is you're throwing up like a softball to the customer for them to say yes. And then I guess I go back to the basics again. That's something else that stuck with me, is that I was told to get 75 yeses from a customer before you ask them to buy it. And it seems excessive, but you know what it did? Like I said, I feel like it's a game, and it's a fun game to master. It's a fun game to learn. And so I put that in the tool belt. I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, how do I get people to say yes? And that's where that word came from. Isn't it? Doesn't it? Shouldn't it? And you ended it like that, in that manner. And then they would usually say yes. Sure is a nice color, isn't it? Man, that sure rode nice, didn't it? Sure rode a little bit nicer than your current car, didn't it? And yes. Man, those seats were pretty comfortable, weren't they? Yeah, they were. Man, this seemed to have all the features that you and your family were wanting in your the new car, isn't it? It is. Hey, if we could fiddle with all the figures, take your vehicle on trade, get you into the new one, and fit it with 100% within your budget, there isn't any reason why we couldn't wrap this up, is there? And then they're like, no. Or they said yes. Yeah, there is a reason why I couldn't wrap it up. Smile, because I'm okay with that. No worries, what would that be? So it's like, I would just break this down to the simplest form. And it really just came down to the basics. Ask the customer to buy it. Just ask them to buy it. And when they don't, or they tell you a hesitation, I think we should switch that objection up to a hesitation, because if you've done your job properly, you're on the right vehicle. You know that you're on the right vehicle. They know they're on the right vehicle, but they might have hesitations. So stop calling them objections. Stop saying that you're overcoming or handling objections. You're not overcoming or handling objections. You're simply working out their hesitation and getting them to feel better about what they're doing and more confident. Maybe they don't have enough information about it. Maybe you didn't do a good enough job tying the features, the advantages, the benefits to them. Maybe they don't see the value in the vehicle that they're purchasing. Maybe they did some math at home, and their math at home leads them on a certain dollar figure, leads them to X payment, and then you're showing them a vehicle that's a little bit more. So now they're hesitant because they think, oh, this is going to be too much payment for me. So I think there's a lot of reasons why a customer may not say yes, but that's okay. That's where you as a salesperson get to figure that out. But if you want to improve your career and you want to be better than the majority of all the salespeople, simply ask them to buy. Simply ask them to go on the test drive. Ask them to do the write-up. Or start telling them the next step. Most people fear because they don't know what's going to happen next. That's the customer. They fear what's going to happen next. So if they fear what's happening next and they don't know what's going to happen next, so there's a little bit of an unknown, maybe they don't want to move forward because they're like, well, I really don't know what's going to happen next. So they're a little bit afraid about that. So they don't want to do that. Or they do know what's going to come next and they don't want to have to go through that. They know if they go on a test drive that you're gonna beg them to buy the vehicle. They know if they come inside to look at the numbers, the next thing is that you're gonna have manager after manager after manager come out and close the deal. So sometimes if you just explain the process and explain how it's done at your dealership, it might ease that for the customer, and they might be more apt to go through the process with you. Because if they showed up at the dealership and you found them a car that they're interested in, they want to test drive it. Why would they not want to test drive it? They all want to test drive. Why would they not want to? Okay? They all want to test drive. If you found them a vehicle that they love it, they test drove it, and they love it, why wouldn't they want to see if it fit within their budget? Isn't that kind of the whole point? Why wouldn't they want to see what their trade-in is worth? I'm sure they would. But you don't ask them to buy. You don't ask them to go the next step. You are not explaining the next step to the customer. So if you're willing to get whatever's inside of you out, the fear, the whatever it is, okay, and just ask them to buy it. And I'm telling you, if you explain to the customer the next 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you're at, what comes next, and you put them at ease, then they're going to be okay with you telling them what's next. And if they're not ready to buy and they don't want to move forward, they'll let you know. That's okay. Not every single customer is going to come into the dealership and buy the vehicle. But also, you're not going to have a chance to sell everybody a vehicle if they don't test drive, if they don't do a write-up. So, hey, improve your chances. Just ask them to buy. Just ask them to buy the vehicle. Ask them to go on the test drive. Ask them to look at the numbers. It's pretty simple. And then, once you do that 100% of the time, then you can start tweaking your verbiage and what you're saying and how you're saying it and when you're saying it. But you'll just sell more cars naturally by simply just asking. So simply just asking with no talent, no skill whatsoever. You just ask them. Salespeople around you are going to be like, whoa, what happened? What are you doing? What are you doing different? And when you tell them, man, I just started asking them to buy. They're going to be like, no, that's not it. But it is, I promise you. So, hey, have a great day. Till tomorrow, crush it today, okay? For those who actually watch the whole video through and actually care about their career, good job.
We all show up, but we ain't built the same. One's chasing glory, one's playing the game. One's got the gift, don't break a sweat. The other's out here grinding with nothing left. One wants the crowd, the lights, the fame. The other's in the dark, just building a name. One was born with it, one had to grow. One's got talent, one's got hustle.